I thought I knew him. My husband, Mark. I thought I knew every inch of him. The good, the bad. I thought I understood his every move. But one moment, one look from him would be the beginning of the end, just a glimpse of the stranger I would come to despise. Hello, my beautiful viewers. If you're new here, welcome to a space where we dive into the deepest corners of betrayal, heartbreak, and emotional truth. And to my returning viewers, thank you for being with me. Your support means the world, and I appreciate every single one of you. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so you don't miss the next part of this story. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing from you, and I read every single one. Now, let me tell you a story. My name is Laura. I'm in my mid-30s, and I've been married to Mark for almost a decade. Our life together, or so I thought, was nothing short of perfect. We lived in a cozy house tucked away in a quiet neighborhood in California, with a white picket fence and a lawn that always looked just a little too pristine. We were what people would call the ideal couple. The kind of couple you see on magazine covers or in movies, successful, content, and so in love it practically oozed out of us. I met Mark when I was 24, freshly out of college and full of dreams about a career I wasn't quite sure how to start. He was my knight in shining armor, tall, handsome, ambitious, and every woman's fantasy. He had this way of looking at me, making me feel like I was the only person in the room. He was perfect. At least, that's what I believed. We had the kind of love that made everyone around us a little envious. Date nights, spontaneous weekend getaways, the surprise flowers every now and then, he had a way of making every moment feel magical. Our friends would always joke that we were goals, and, for the most part, I believed it too. We never fought. Not really. Sure, we'd have small disagreements, but nothing that would ever make me question the foundation of our marriage. It wasn't until a few months ago that I began to notice the first cracks. They were so small at first, hardly noticeable. Late nights at work. The occasional missed text or forgotten promise. But it wasn't enough to make me suspicious. I thought it was just the stress of his job. I told myself this was normal. Every marriage went through these small phases, right? I didn't know then, but those little moments were the beginning of the end. It all started with one late night. I remember it clearly. It was a Tuesday, and we had just returned from a weekend trip to Napa Valley. Mark had been acting a bit distant on the trip, but I wrote it off as just work stress. The kind of stress he'd always shrugged off in the past. But that night, I waited for him to come home from a last-minute meeting, and something felt off. He came through the door at nearly midnight, his tie loosened, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. He kissed me on the cheek, but it felt different, cold, almost like he wasn't there. "Hey, I'm home," he said, his voice flat. I gave him a tired smile. "Long day?" "Yeah. You know how it is." He didn't look at me when he spoke. He tossed his keys on the counter, grabbed a glass of water, and went straight upstairs. The next few weeks were a blur of more of the same. He'd leave early for work, come home late, and his phone was constantly buzzing. But it wasn't until I came across a message on his phone that I realized something was terribly wrong. I'm not the type to snoop, but one night, I saw his phone flashing across the kitchen counter. It was a text from a woman named Sophia. I wasn't prepared for what it said. "I miss you. Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll be waiting for you as soon as you're done with her." Her. I didn't know what to think. At first, I thought it was some kind of joke. Maybe a business associate or a coworker. But I knew. I knew the way my stomach turned and the way my heart sank. This wasn't business. This was personal. And I wasn't part of it. I didn't confront him that night. I couldn't. My mind was racing, my thoughts jumbled. Instead, I went to bed, staring at the ceiling, the weight of the message pressing down on me, wondering how I could have been so blind. The next morning, I asked him about the text. He denied it. Of course, he did. He laughed it off, told me it was nothing. A work-related text that had gotten mixed up in the wrong conversation. And, for a while, I almost believed him. But I knew. Deep down, I knew I wasn't imagining it. Something was happening. Something he wasn't telling me. And so began the slow unraveling of my world. The life I thought was perfect was now tainted with doubt and uncertainty. What was I supposed to do? I loved him, and I believed him. But trust was the one thing I couldn't get back. I spent the next few days in a haze, trapped between doubt and the cold, hard truth. Mark was distant. The text from Sophia still haunted me. I couldn't shake it. I wanted to trust him, but every part of me felt like I was drowning in a sea of unanswered questions. I tried to tell myself it was just a misunderstanding. That I was overthinking it, that I had nothing to worry about. But deep down, I knew this was more than just a harmless mistake. The pieces didn't add up anymore. That Friday night, I sat in our living room, my mind racing with possibilities. Mark hadn't come home until late again. I had cooked dinner, pasta, his favorite, but he hadn't even acknowledged it. He was distracted. His attention was always on something else, his phone, his emails, whatever she was sending him. I watched as he absent-mindedly ate his meal, eyes glued to the screen of his phone. It wasn't until he got up to grab another glass of wine that I saw it, the name again. Sophia. It was a message from her. I'm still waiting for you, Mark. I know you want this as much as I do. I didn't feel anger in that moment. No. The anger came later. First, I felt numb. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers. But something stopped me. I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Instead, I stood up and walked out of the room, my heart pounding in my chest. The air in the house felt thick. Suffocating. I needed space, time to think. I needed to clear my head, to figure out what to do next. I spent that night at my best friend Rachel's house. I told her everything, what I'd seen, what I was feeling, and how I couldn't breathe, knowing that the man I loved was slipping away from me. Laura, you've got to confront him, Rachel said, her voice steady but full of concern. This is not just something you can ignore. You deserve better than this. I wanted to agree with her. I really did. But I was terrified. What if I was wrong? What if I was just imagining things? But deep down, I knew. I knew I wasn't imagining anything. The next morning, I came home to an empty house. Mark was gone again, another early morning meeting, or so he claimed. But this time, I didn't wait for him to come home. I had to know. I needed the truth. I went straight to his office, the one he kept locked when he wasn't there. I had never gone through his things before. It wasn't like me. But something inside me broke, and I couldn't hold back anymore. I didn't care about privacy or trust anymore. I needed to see it for myself. I opened the drawer. His computer was there, along with some files and paperwork. But it was the folder on top that caught my attention. It was labeled Sophia. I didn't hesitate. My hands trembled as I opened the folder, revealing pictures. Pictures of them together, at restaurants, at the beach, in his car. The smiles on their faces were so genuine, so real. It was like they had a life together. A life I wasn't a part of. It wasn't just an affair. It was an entire relationship. My heart sank, and the tears began to fall. I didn't know what to do, where to go, or who to turn to. I felt utterly helpless. Betrayed. Small. That afternoon, Mark came home. He was smiling, talking about a meeting he had. But I wasn't listening. All I could see were the images in the folder. I felt like I was suffocating in my own skin. Hey, what's wrong? He asked, sensing the shift in the air. You are, I whispered. Mark looked at me, confused. He set his briefcase down and walked closer, but I didn't move. I know about Sophia, I said, my voice trembling. I know everything. His face drained of color. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. It was like the words were stuck. I could see him trying to formulate an excuse, a lie. But I didn't want to hear it anymore. How long, Mark? I asked, the question barely escaping my lips. How long have you been seeing her? His silence said everything. Answer me. I shouted, my chest heaving. How long? I didn't mean for it to happen, Laura, he said finally, his voice weak. It just did. I didn't want to hurt you. I never wanted to hurt you. Then why? I choked. Why would you do this to me? To us? I was lonely, he whispered. Things changed. I started pulling away, and Don't you dare blame me for this. I interrupted. You made a choice. You chose her over me. Over our marriage. Over everything. Mark sank into a chair, his face buried in his hands. He looked lost, but I wasn't buying it. I wasn't the fool anymore. I'm sorry, Laura. I didn't think it would get this far, he said. But please, don't leave me. It was then that I realized something. He wasn't sorry. He was sorry he got caught. That's all this was. I couldn't bear to look at him anymore. I needed to get out, to breathe, to think. I'm done, Mark. I'm done, I said, walking away. My heart felt like it was breaking, but I wasn't going to let him see me cry anymore. I need time. I need to think. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I couldn't wrap my mind around the fact that the man I loved, the man I had trusted with everything, was a stranger to me now. The man I thought I knew had betrayed me in the worst way possible. But I didn't cry anymore. At least not in front of him. I wish I could tell you that when Mark apologized, I believed him. I wish I could say that the sight of his face, his tear-filled eyes, was enough to erase the pain he caused. But the truth is, I was already too far gone. The moment I saw those pictures of him with her, the woman he claimed was just an innocent friend, I couldn't unsee it. The betrayal was too deep. Too raw. It sliced through the trust we'd spent years building, and it left me empty. The first few days after the confrontation felt like I was floating through a fog. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't focus. My hands trembled every time I reached for my phone, waiting for a message, an explanation, something that could make this all feel like a bad dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was my reality now. Mark tried to talk to me. He came home that first night and sat across from me, his hands wringing in his lap like he couldn't sit still. Laura, he started, his voice soft, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. I never meant for this to happen. I didn't even look at him. How could you not mean for it to happen? I whispered. You chose it. Over and over again. How could you do this to me, Mark? He sighed, his voice strained. I don't know. I don't have an answer. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I don't want to lose you. You already have, I said, feeling the weight of the words even as they left my mouth. You lost me the moment you chose her over me. The days blurred together after that. I stayed in the house, mostly alone. I spent hours pacing, my mind racing in circles. I couldn't look at him without feeling sick, without seeing her face in every corner of our life, the life I thought was ours. The life I thought we'd built together. I needed space. I needed to think. But mostly, I needed to feel something that wasn't pain. So, I threw myself into work. I buried myself in meetings, in emails, in anything that could distract me from the mess at home. But every night, when I came back to that house, it felt like a prison. A place where I was trapped, constantly reminded of the man I loved, and the man I could no longer trust. Then came the day I found out something that would change everything. It was another late night at the office, and I had just finished up an important presentation. I decided to check my phone, something I rarely did when I was working, but that night, I had a strange feeling. I checked my text messages, and there it was, a new message from a number I didn't recognize. It was a text from Sophia. The words burned through my phone screen, each one colder than the last. I know you think you've won, Laura, but trust me, Mark wants me. You'll never get him back. He's already mine. I read it over and over again, the words sinking into my chest like daggers. She was taunting me. Taunting me. I didn't know what to do with the message at first. I didn't know whether to confront her or let it slide. I knew that confronting her wouldn't change anything. Mark had already made his choice. But there was something inside me, something fierce, that wouldn't let me accept defeat. This wasn't just about winning him back anymore. It was about regaining my power. My life. And maybe, just maybe, I could make her regret everything she thought she had. The next morning, I called Rachel. She was the only one who seemed to understand me in all of this, someone who could see past the pain and help me see what I was too blinded by emotion to notice. Laura, Rachel said, her voice firm, you have to make a decision. You can't live like this forever. Either you walk away, or you fight for your marriage. But you can't stay stuck in this. I don't know how to fight anymore, I whispered. I don't know what's left. Rachel paused, and when she spoke again, her voice softened. The woman you were before this, before Mark and Sophia, she's still in there. She's waiting for you to find her again. I hung up, my heart pounding in my chest. She was right. I had to make a choice. And I wasn't going to let this destroy me. That afternoon, I went to Mark's office. I needed to confront him. But this time, it wasn't about anger or accusations. It wasn't about begging him to come back. It was about taking control. I know you think I'll just forgive you, I said, my voice steady despite the storm swirling inside me. But I won't. Not this time. Mark looked at me, his face drawn with guilt and desperation. Laura, please, I never meant for any of this. You didn't mean for it to happen. I interrupted. How many times does a person need to make a choice before it's no longer an accident, Mark? I was confused, he said, his voice breaking. I don't know what happened. I don't know how it got this far. Don't you dare blame this on confusion, I shot back, my anger flaring for the first time. You knew exactly what you were doing. You chose her. Over me. Over us. I took a deep breath, feeling the power return to my voice. And I'm done. I'm done letting you control this. I'm done being the one to fix everything. If you want to salvage anything, you need to make the next move. Not me. That night, I slept for the first time in days. Not because I had the answers, not because things were fixed, but because I finally felt like I was in control of my own destiny again. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. I didn't know if Mark could ever earn my trust back. But I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going to let this define me. I would fight for my happiness. I would fight for me. The days after my confrontation with Mark were a blur. It felt like the calm before the storm. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now felt suffocating, silent, cold, and distant. Mark's apologies and pleas for forgiveness seemed endless, but they no longer mattered to me. The man I had married was gone. And the woman I had become was the one I needed to get to know. For the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to feel, to sit with the pain, to examine it, and to ask myself, who am I, without him? I spent hours walking through the city, lost in my thoughts. I needed space, not just from Mark, but from everything I had once known. I wanted to rediscover who I was, without the weight of his betrayal hanging over me. I realized that I had been so consumed by our marriage, by my role as his wife, that I had forgotten about myself, my own dreams, my own desires, my own identity. It wasn't easy. It wasn't overnight. But I started making small changes. I joined a yoga class. I hadn't worked out in years, but the idea of being present in my own body, of reconnecting with myself, was something I craved. I reconnected with old friends, ones I hadn't spoken to in years, who had watched me vanish into my marriage. I poured myself into my career, something I had neglected for too long. And for the first time in ages, I found joy in the little things. As the days passed, I began to feel stronger. More like the woman I had been before. But Mark wasn't ready to let go. He kept trying, sending me texts, leaving messages, even writing me handwritten notes, apologizing, promising things would change, begging me to come back. But I knew better now. I wasn't ready to forgive him. Not yet. The worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. No. It was the uncertainty. The not knowing if I could ever look at him the same way again. Could I ever trust him? Could we ever rebuild what we once had? Or was this the end? One night, as I sat at my desk going over a work presentation, the phone rang. It was Rachel. Laura, you've got to listen to me. It's time, she said, her voice firm. You've been through hell, but you're not doing this to win him back. You're doing this for you. You need to show him that you are not someone he can walk all over. I knew exactly what she meant. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about getting back at him for what he'd done. It was about reclaiming my power. The power I had lost when I trusted him more than myself. You're right, I said, my voice steady. I can't keep living like this, Rachel. I need to take control of this situation. I need to feel like I have a choice again. I've been telling you this for weeks, she laughed, but I'm glad you're finally listening. I know you can do this. It's time for you to take the reins. I hung up, the fire inside me rekindled. It wasn't about playing games anymore. It wasn't about Mark. It was about me. I made the decision then. I was going to make Mark work for it, if he wanted me back. And if he didn't, then that was his choice. But I wouldn't sit idly by and let him walk away from this without facing the consequences of his actions. The next morning, I called a divorce lawyer. I didn't file right away, but I wanted to know my options. I needed to know that I had control over my own future, whether I chose to stay or leave. I wasn't going to allow him to dictate this chapter of my life. I had to take the reins back. Mark could sense something was different. I stopped responding to his texts immediately. I didn't answer every call. When he came home, I was polite, but distant. I didn't beg for explanations anymore. I didn't need them. I knew the truth. One evening, he tried to sit down with me. He had that look in his eyes again, the same look he gave me when we were newlyweds, the one that said, "I need you to believe in me." But I wasn't buying it anymore. I wasn't the same woman who would wait for him to come around. I had learned to stand on my own. "Laura," he said softly, "I'm still in love with you. I made a huge mistake. Please don't leave me." I looked him dead in the eyes, my heart pounding, but I stood my ground. "You've broken my trust, Mark. And no matter how many times you say you're sorry, it doesn't change what you've done. I can't just forget this. I can't just forgive you." He looked at me with desperation in his eyes, but there was nothing more to say. I had made my decision. It wasn't easy, being the one to walk away, to finally put myself first. But that night, I went to bed feeling something I hadn't in months: peace. I didn't know what would happen with Mark. I didn't know if I could ever forgive him. But I knew one thing: I had regained control over my life. I was no longer defined by his mistakes, by his affair. I was free. The days after my final confrontation with Mark were filled with uncertainty. I had made the choice to take control of my life, but even with that control came moments of doubt. Could I really move on? Could I truly heal from this betrayal? Was I ready to walk away forever, or was there a part of me that still held on to hope for our marriage? I had spent weeks reflecting on everything, on the relationship, on the lies, on who I was before and after the affair. It felt like I was drowning in the past, with each day weighed down by the betrayal. But one thing had become crystal clear: I had to let go of the idea of what we once were. I had to embrace who I was becoming. But the hardest part of it all wasn't walking away. It was realizing that there was still one final truth I needed to face. That morning, as I sat at the kitchen table sipping my coffee, my phone rang. The name on the screen made my heart skip: Mark. I hadn't spoken to him in days, not since I told him that I wasn't sure we had a future together. But I knew I couldn't avoid this forever. I took a deep breath and answered. "Laura," Mark's voice came through the phone, fragile and unsure. "I know I've hurt you. I know I've betrayed you in every way possible. But I need you to listen to me, Spine." I didn't want to know. I didn't care anymore. But I couldn't bring myself to hang up. "What is it?" I whispered, my heart thumping in my chest. "I never wanted you to find out this way. But the truth is, Sophia is married too. And she's been having an affair with someone else. She's been using me just as much as I've been using her. She's been lying to me all along. She was never looking for love. She just wanted to tear us apart." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This entire time, I had thought I was the one betrayed, the one who had been left in the dark. But now, Mark was telling me that I wasn't just betrayed by him. I was also the victim of a calculated game of manipulation, with Sophia at the center of it all. Mark continued, his voice filled with shame. "I don't know how I got caught up in all this. I was so lost. I thought it was the way out of the emptiness I was feeling. But now I see it for what it really was: a mistake." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You mean it wasn't just about you and Sophia? You've been playing a game with me and her, both of us just pawns in your mess?" Mark was silent for a moment. "Yes. I messed up. I thought I could fix it, but I only made things worse." I hung up the phone before he could say another word. My heart was beating so fast I thought it might explode. It wasn't just the affair that hurt me, it was the realization that Mark wasn't the only one in this mess. Sophia, too, had been playing games, using him for her own needs, just like I had feared. I sat there for a long time, digesting what I had just learned. The anger I had been holding on to, the betrayal I had been nursing, felt different now. It wasn't just about me and Mark anymore. It was about the lies I had been told by both of them. But in that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I wasn't just the woman left behind in this mess. I was stronger than that. I had fought for my own happiness before, and I would do it again. I decided to meet with Sophia. It wasn't something I had planned on doing, but after what Mark had told me, I couldn't leave things unresolved. I couldn't let her think she had one. I needed to face her. I arranged to meet her at a cafe downtown. The place was quiet, with soft music playing in the background. As soon as she walked in, I saw the same cold, calculating look in her eyes that I had seen in Mark's when he first confessed his affair. But this time, I wasn't afraid of her. "Sophia," I said, my voice calm, "I know what you've done. I know what you've been doing behind my back, and I know you've been using Mark just as much as he's been using you." Her face softened for a second, and I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "You don't understand, Mark and I." "Stop." I held up my hand. "I understand perfectly. You don't want to admit it, but this is over. What you've done doesn't just affect me, it affects you too. You've been playing a game, but now it's time for it to end. Mark and I aren't part of your story anymore. And you're no longer part of mine." Sophia looked at me, her mouth opening as though she was going to say something. But she didn't. Instead, she stood up, her chair scraping across the floor. She looked at me once more, then turned and left. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't even feel relief. But I did feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The next few days were spent in quiet reflection. Mark called me, but I didn't pick up. I didn't need his calls anymore. I had learned everything I needed to know about myself, about my strength, about my ability to heal, about how much power I still had. The man I had loved so much no longer had a hold on me. And neither did Sophia. I filed for divorce that week. But this time, it wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about hurting Mark. It wasn't about winning anything. It was about choosing myself. Weeks later, I moved into a small apartment. I decorated it with love, my vision, my energy. I surrounded myself with people who supported me, and I focused on myself more than I ever had before. And then, one evening, when I was least expecting it, I received a message. It was from Mark. "I miss you, Laura," it read. "I never should have let you go." I didn't respond. Because this time, I had already found what I was looking for: peace, strength, and a life that was mine to build. The end of the story.